It's likely Nick Backstrom never plays hockey again.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holney. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you guys can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. So in today's edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about not only are the Capitals playing really well, but the Hershey Bears continue to dominate as they are in first place. We'll talk about that in the show. A little bit later, we will talk about the Capitals at the Thanksgiving break. Yes, a true measuring stick that is often spoke of in the NHL. Where your team is at Thanksgiving break sometimes is generally where you will end up at the end of the season. The Capitals are currently in second place in the Metro, so I like where they're at. But just to get it going here, we will talk about Nick Backstrom and the comments that were made by GM Brian Maclellan that most likely Nick Backstrom will never play hockey again. And it's kind of a somber thing, kind of a sad thing, if you will. Something that isn't too surprising to me, as I saw that being the case when he announced it. He said that he's stepping away from hockey indefinitely. Rarely do you see a return after that, unless, something just really crazy happened and he was able to have more mobility with that hip. I think that it's just totally off the table, and it's a sad thing at the end of the day because of his many contributions that he made to this team. But sometimes knowing when it's your time and ending it on your own terms is sometimes even better than, the coach saying, hey, you got to get going here. Backstrom was a 2006 Capitals first round draft pick and a 2018 Stanley Cup champion. And again, when he was here, when he was dialed in, no one served up passes better than Nick Backstrom, and an unsung guy, a guy that I think oftentimes lived in Alex Ovechkin's shadow willfully. He kind of shunned the limelight as Alex Ovechkin just rocketed to the top. He kind of just was happy sitting in the background. He, as we know, appeared in commercials with Alex Ovechkin and was his right-hand man for many years. He assisted on more Alex Ovechkin goals than anyone else. At 35 years old, he played 1,105 games for the Caps and recorded 1,033 points, 271 goals, 762 assists. And I have no doubt in my mind that his jersey will be hung above Capital One Arena at some point, retired, or his number rather. And that will be, justice, because he was that kind of player. And, just a guy that ate a steady diet of humble pie. He was never a guy that says, I'm this or I'm that. But one of the things that I will always remember is that when Tom Wilson and Nick Backstrom were making their return at the same time last season, approximately, that Tom Wilson, who is markedly a bigger guy, a younger guy, was in the gym, and he said that he was ready to hang it up and call it a day for training. And he looked over and he saw Nick Backstrom still just working away on the machine, on the treadmill, just go, go, go. And the one thing I will say about Nick Backstrom is he did 100% what he could do to get back into game position. I don't ever think he mailed it in, not for 1 second. Do I think that Nick Backstrom mailed in any performance? He always gave 100%, and that is why I think about him as, so fondly, and how I always will. What a great player he was. Backstrom, as we know, announced he was stepping away over 2 weeks ago already. And it's kind of an interesting position because he signed that new extension, so he has this year and next year. He is on LTIR. I don't think that Nick Backstrom would walk away from that money, nor should he. But it is an interesting thing, and the writing was kind of on the walls, and it was one of the things that I spoke about even before he retired. If you're an everydayer, I spoke about this the day before that he announced his retirement. Was that all of Spencer Carbery stopped talking about Nick Backstrom? He wasn't in the equation anymore. All of a sudden, Connor McMichael and Nick Backstrom were cycling through at the third line center position. He was also removed from the first power play unit. So I think to a certain extent, Spencer Carbery knew exactly what he was doing. And what do I mean? He knew that that was pushing buttons. It was a bit manipulative. Did he know that for sure he was going to step away from hockey? But why all of a sudden did Spencer Carbery want to cycle through with Connor McMichael? Why did he take him off the first power play unit? Listen, Backstrom is a guy that plays with a lot of pride, as should he. But I think that he saw it. I think that, he saw that, he's 35 years old. And he saw that it was time to step away. I think that he saw Connor McMichael, a guy that has been looking for his opportunity for years here and never really found a spot that, maybe it's time for me to just hand off the reins to some of the young guys, Hendricks Lapierre, that kind of thing. And it has paid off handsomely for the Capitals as they are playing so well. And, I'm not going to say that they wouldn't have played as well with Nick Backstrom in the lineup, but potentially I think that Connor McMichael has played a huge role on this team. And, you take a look at Hendricks Lapierre, for example. He got an opportunity just based on Evgeny Kuznetsov with this mysterious illness. So it is interesting that, by hook or by crook, that these young guys are getting their opportunity. And Brian Maclellan even spoke about it as much. He was on the Jeff Merrick show talking about that he wants this team to get younger. Finally, this is something that we've talked about for years, but it's finally sinking in with Brian Maclellan that this team needs to get younger. So as far as Nick Backstrom is concerned, a great career, an all-star. He's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame as just one of the better hockey players to ever do it. And I'm happy to say that number 19 did it as a Capital. But talking about Mac saying his return is unlikely, I think that hip thing came here probably 3 years ago, where it went to a different level. And to watch him struggle and play through the pain with it was hard, Mac said. The different stages of how we address it, how does he become pain-free? How can we get back to where he wants to be was good 2.5 to 3 year process you didn't want to see, and the way it did, and have him go out the wrong way. And it was difficult, but the good thing that I will say about it is that Nick Backstrom, as he walks away from hockey, it's just a formality, if you ask me, is that he's doing it on his own terms. Spencer Carbery may have nudged him by doing his actions, taking him off the first power play unit, having him cycle through with Connor McMichael, like, hey, are you getting the hint here? Maybe you're going to be a healthy scratch here soon. That he didn't want to lose his dignity by watching games up in the press box when he was, for the most part, able-bodied, even though he was playing not in top form. So it is interesting, and these players take it very seriously. If you want to take a look at Patrick Laine, who got benched for the first time in his career for the Columbus Blue Jackets, he said it was one of the most humiliating things that's ever happened to him. So these guys take it seriously. Nick Backstrom would have taken it seriously if he got benched in favor of Connor McMichael. So ultimately, I think that Spencer Carbery did what he had to do. I think that Nick Backstrom did what he had to do. And that is where we are at right now, is that Connor McMichael is the future, the young man. And, Nick Backstrom at 35 years old isn't as young as he used to be. None of us are. But it's facing reality about where we are in life. And where he's at in life is that, he can spend some really great years with his kids, his wife. He's still a young man. He's only 35 years old, for God's sake. So in hockey terms, he's a little bit long in the tooth. But as far as his actual play is concerned, it wasn't where it once was. And I got a chance to see him play against the Wild in Minnesota. And he just didn't seem like he used to be. He was out of position. He was a bit slow. And then we find out after the fact that, he had a hard time even walking around when he was off the ice. So it was a thing that, like, again, he did his level best. He went in the offseason this last summer and played hockey in Sweden. It was promising. He came into camp with a skip in his step, saying he's feeling the best that he's felt in years. So it was difficult. Obviously, something eroded, something went wrong. That injury was exacerbated, and he wasn't quite where he needed to be. But at the end of the day, I'm, pulling for him. I'm hoping, that he has a great future, however that might be. Maybe it's a future in coaching. Maybe it's in broadcasting. Maybe it's something altogether different. But at the end of the day, I wish Nick Backstrom nothing but the best, as you are one heck of a hockey player and will definitely go down in Capitals history. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about the Capitals at the Thanksgiving break. Where do they stack up? I'll talk about that coming up. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Do it today. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure and subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. I have a lot of great guests lined up, not to mention game breakdown. So make sure and subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals today. All right, in this next segment here, we are going to talk about the Capitals at Thanksgiving break. And if you follow the NHL at a larger scope than just the Capitals, you know that oftentimes it spoke within NHL circles that where a team is at the Thanksgiving break oftentimes is near where they finish at the end of the year. And if you take a look at where the Capitals were to start the season, I remember talking to all of you about them starting 1-3-1, and should we push the panic button? And what are we doing with Spencer Carbery? Why didn't we get that top six forward? That things have changed quite a bit as the Capitals have gone on a winning streak and currently sit in second place in the Metro Division. So things are going in the right direction. The arrow is pointing up, as they say. Things are looking good for the Caps, but no rest for the wicked as the Capitals had practice today. It was a quick Thanksgiving practice. Everyone was present except for Pat Chiaretti and Nick Backstrom. I'm hoping to see Max Pacioretty here at some point, another guy that's getting a little bit long in the tooth as far as NHL talk is concerned. But we could use some more sustained goal scoring. I know that before this previous game here that they were getting it primarily from the bottom six. But what did we see against the Sabres? We saw TJ Oshie on the score sheet. We saw Tom Wilson. We saw Alex Alexiev. So we were getting goal scoring from, multiple levels. It wasn't just one player in particular. And then, of course, Dylan Strome putting the nail in the coffin in overtime. So to add another 30-plus goal score potentially would be a really great thing. As far as Martin Fehérváry is concerned, that is the sweet spot. That is where we want to be. Once Martin Fehérváry makes his return back to this team, the blue line in particular, will be exactly the way it was sketched out in the preseason or going into camp. Everyone will be healthy. Everything will be firing on all cylinders. Ultimately, I'm not too disappointed with Alex Alexiev, Hardy Hamanaktel, Lucas Johansson. They have all stepped in admirably, and one of them will be the extra at some point. So it's going to be interesting. It's kind of a bummer for some of those guys that put in the work, but ultimately we want the best team possible. I would never want to sit Martin Fehérváry for an Alexiev or Lucas Johansson. Martin Fehérváry brings a big compete level. Oftentimes he leads the team in hits. I want to say he's number 2 behind Tom Wilson. So we are looking forward to Martin Fehérváry's return. He continues to take steps forwards as he took part in full contact practice for the second day straight. He has missed the last 4 with a lower body injury and could be back on Friday afternoon's game against the Oilers. That would be good, getting coaxed into it a little bit. Again, I don't want the Capitals to fall into what they call a trap game. Again, what is a trap game? If you're newer or you're not, familiar with sports lingo, is when you play an opponent that you perceive is not as good as you, that you apply half the pressure, or you don't play 100% and you value or devalue your opponent. You look at yourself and you look at the team that you're playing, you're like, they're really easy. I don't think I really need to apply myself. I don't think I need to play at 100%. Oftentimes that can lead to disaster, and it's not just something that's unique to hockey. You see it in all professional sports. And sometimes the underdogs, they walk away with it because why? They're more hungry. And make no mistake about it, the Edmonton Oilers, despite where they are in the standings, despite that they have a new coach, they still have plenty of firepower. Connor McDavid, you take a look at it. Nugent Hopkins, you take a look at a lot of great players on that team that can do really great things. And, all it takes sometimes is just a little bit of coaxing from some of those players. And all of a sudden they can overtake you. And this team that you thought wasn't that great, all of a sudden, pulled away with the win in the third period, something like that. There is a lot of potential. I also forgot about Draisaitl, another big name on that team. So don't underestimate your opponent, primarily in this case, as you are taking on an Edmonton Oilers team that, despite the fact that they are near the bottom of the standings, was a team that a lot of people had circled as a Stanley Cup contender. Do you guys remember me talking to you about this in the preseason, about these quote unquote experts and that they really don't know anything? These are the same experts that said that the Capitals are going to be one of the worst teams in the NHL. Number 2 in the Metro. I don't think I need to say anything else. Also, Kuzi was at practice after missing the last 2 due to illness, but should be good to go on Friday, potentially. This mysterious illness that we don't know ultimately what it is. Maybe it's the flu. I guess we really don't know. I guess it's not really any of our business, but it is kind of open to interpretation. The unfortunate thing, however, is that probably means that Hendrix Lapierre will not be in the lineup. I guess they could pull someone else. As we know, Matthew Phillips has been a healthy scratch, but he's kind of already out of the lineup. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out, as it is an earlier game Monday afternoon. But we're hoping for a big thing from the Capitals as they can continue to keep rolling. I will not be happy. I'm happy now, but I won't be fully happy until the Capitals sit in first place in the Metro. It is a tall order. I get that. The New York Rangers are really good this year, but the Capitals have poured it on strong, and I think they have what it takes, as long as they continue playing the way that they're playing, except for addressing the power play, which is something I've beaten on every single day on the show. The power play. Still a work in progress, I guess is a nice way to put it, but we're hoping for bigger and better things. As far as practice for the Capitals today, it was a light practice with a lot of family and friends in attendance. And it was a cool moment seeing TJ Oshie skating with his kids out on the ice afterward. Just a special moment, and something that professional athletes can do is you have access to the facilities. And, TJ Oshie is a great player. If his kids wanted to get into hockey, I have no doubt that they would be great players as well. And then what it was said is that to close the evening, that there is going to be a big Thanksgiving party at Tom Wilson's house. That would be interesting if someone could have an inside track of that, maybe a camera, maybe something to see all the shenanigans that's going to go on at number 43's house. Charlie Lindgren was first off the ice, indicating that he very well might get the start versus Edmonton, kind of as I predicted. And why not? I think that all things considered, Darcy Kemper played well. I think he could have played better. Again, the first 2 goals that he faced would have been difficult for any netminder to stop, but it seems like those difficult ones that not anyone else can stop, Charlie Lindgren can. And ultimately, that for me is why he has got to be the guy right now until he proves us wrong. So that is what I'm hoping for. Again, even though the Capitals continue to roll, they did have a light practice today. Just, kind of going through the motions a little bit there, keeping the legs fresh, and a good opportunity for friends and family to attend. And just, a good bonding moment as they close out the evening at Tom Wilson's house. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about, it's not just the Capitals that are rolling. The Hershey Bears continue to dominate? We'll talk about that coming up. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we know the Capitals are playing well, but sometimes we forget about our friends, our AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. Yes, the Calder Cup winning Hershey Bears last year are continuing to knock it out of the park, and they're getting it done this year as well. And it's a good thing because a lot of those young players are working their way up for the first time in a long time. Connor McMichael, Hendrix Lapierre, Beck Malenstein, Alexiev, Lucas Johansson, Hardy Hamanaktel. At least they've played up on the big team for part of the season anyway. Hunter Shepard as well, Clay Stevenson. I don't want to forget any of them because someone will say, hey, you forgot about this guy. But in any event, if you have an AHL affiliate fully dialed in, that's good. And, it's a winning product. And the coaching systems between Spencer Carbery and how it's done down in Hershey are similar. And the Hershey Bears are in first place in the Atlantic with 26 points. In second place is Hartford with 22. So a good position for the Bears to be at the Thanksgiving break. I have no doubt in my mind that they will make another solid push for the Calder Cup. They were taking down the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins 2-1. That was the game on Wednesday evening. The Bears now have won 3 of 5 against the Penguins this season and have a 13-4-0 record. Overall, the best record in the AHL. Again, if sometimes I know there's casual hockey fans and they don't know, but here is the NHL, here's the Capitals, and just the slightest click underneath of that is the Hershey Bears, the AHL, still professional hockey at the end of the day. Again, if you're an everydayer, I talk about how Braden Holtby said that the difference between the NHL and the AHL is razor fine. Some really premier big name players have come out of the AHL. And in any event, the Capitals AHL affiliate Bears being in first place, well, that is quite something. One of the players that I spoke about this summer, Ivan Miroshnichenko, it's a tough one. You guys are going to have to forgive me a little bit. I hear it different from different people. I hear it different from Joe Beninati. I hear it different from John Walton. I think we know who we're talking about. We'll say Miro here. Miro was healthy scratched by Todd Nelson for play away from the puck. We just want to find consistency. And what happened? That was the game before. In the game on Wednesday evening, he went back into the lineup and helped contribute. I was back at it against Wilkes-Barre Scranton Pens. Also, Riley Sutter scored the game winner, giving him goals in consecutive games. Hunter Shepard made 22 saves in the victory. Again, no surprise. Right now, if the Capitals announced that Hunter Shepard was going to be the number 2 on the Capitals, I'd go, yep, I believe it. Sure, sounds good to me. There wouldn't be this panic that would be on a lot of other NHL teams, like our number 1, guy is good, but our backup goalie got injured, and they're going to have to go with the guy from the AHL affiliate. No, I actually kind of welcome it. I like Hunter Shepard's game, also Clay Steven. There's never this panic moment for the Capitals if any of their netminders get injured. Now, I guess it would be maybe a little bit different if, something crazy happened and Darcy Kemper and Charlie Lindgren both got injured. Then it would potentially be Hunter Shepard and Clay Stevenson. So, a crazy scenario out there with Darcy Kemper and Charlie Lindgren getting injured at the same time would be inserting, Hunter Shepard and Clay Stevenson would be difficult. But still, I have a decent amount of faith that they would find a way to get it done. Everything that was said, I watched the highlights of the game, is that Hunter Shepard was sharp. Shots faced 32-23 in favor of the Bears. Shepard went 22 for 23 in securing his 7th victory of the season. And to close it out here, Miro made a great pass to Sutter, who was net front and found the back of the net. So getting contributions, a bit of concern for me about Ivan, just given the fact that, I had high hopes for him and, he has scored some pretty decent goals, but it still sounds like he needs to work on his North American game. It looks like the guys that made the decision that decided to go with different players over Miroshnichenko made the right decision. And not to say that, Ivan's not a good option. I think he will be at some point. But I think he's got a bit of work. I mean, if he got benched one game and, came back and played better, they need consistency. I mean, they're not going to give a guy a Capital sweater, a jersey, just because of, who he is potentially. You need to walk it. You need to talk it. You need to prove it. So I think that is what that's about there. But I have no doubt in my mind that Miro will find his way, and I have no doubt that the Hershey Bears will continue to keep rolling. As far as the game tomorrow is concerned, I will have an episode after the game. Yes, I know it's a Friday. Generally, we don't, but I will because, well, I want to cover the game for you guys because I want to talk about this team that keeps rolling. And even if they lose, I'll go over the highlights and the lowlights, but I have a pretty good feeling that the Capitals will pick up the dub against the Edmonton Oilers. Again, just don't fall in the trap game. Have Charlie Lindgren out there dialed in, and I wouldn't tinker with the lineup too much. I know that Evgeny Kuznetsov is most likely going to be inserted back into the game. I guess that is what it is. It'll be interesting to see exactly where he slots in. It seems like everything's kind of fixed. If you take a look, Strome, first line center. Then you take a look as you go down there as well. You got Dowd, you got Connor McMichael. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up slotting in. And also Martin Feravari, if he's good to go, who comes out. And it's going to be interesting. Sometimes you think, when you got these kind of penciled in subconsciously, you think, well, this guy's going to come out. And then sometimes it's a surprise. No, they just kind of juggled things up a little bit. Ultimately, I don't want the Capitals to juggle things up too much as they have been playing very well. But in any event, I want to thank you for joining me on this Thanksgiving edition of Locked On Capitals. Thank you all that are listening and watching this program today. And I want to thank all of you that listen all year long. I want to thank you, everyone that listens on the audio side, whatever podcatcher you use, and on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. Your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals, Locked On Capitals. Make no mistake about it. Don't settle for second best when you have Locked On Capitals. Listen, I want to thank you once again for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.